I'm very pleased tonight to introduce a man who, in my opinion, is the greatest living writer in America, Mr. William Burroughs.
Born February 5, 1914 in St. Louis, Missouri. After graduating from Harvard, I studied medicine in Vienna. I was in the Army for about 6 months, discharged. In 1944, I met Jack Kerouac, Joan Volmer, Allen Ginsberg, and also Herbert Huncke, and some of the characters that later appear in Junkie. Well, there was a knock on the door, and I opened it, and there stood Bob with this very sedate-looking gentleman who turned out to be Bill Burroughs. He was wearing a snap-brim fedora hat, gray gloves, one of which he was carrying in his hand, and he was sort of standing there looking down his nose, as only Bill can, just sort of peering into the room, taking everything in, sight. As soon as I could, I called Bob in the other room, and I said, "Hey, man, who is this dude down here? He brought heat here. You better get him out." He said, "Oh, he's fine. He's good people. Just don't worry about it. He's a nice guy."
Let me explain how we make an arrest. Nova criminals are not three-dimensional organisms, but they need three-dimensional human agents to operate. One of our agents is posing as a writer. He has written a so-called pornographic novel called Naked Lunch, in which the orgasm death gimmick is described. For about 8 years in Tangiers, I was writing sporadically, and a lot of this material was in the letters to Allen Ginsberg, which have recently been published. I was surprised, reading back over that, how much of Naked Lunch is in those letters. Dear Ellen, made connection with the unassuming little witch doctor who prepared me some yahe. It is the most powerful drug I have ever experienced.
He spent a great deal of his time dashing through the streets madly from one pharmacy to another, getting chemicals that he could use and boil down and inject. But gradually he began to become more and more invisible in the streets as the winter wore on. And all the Spanish kids called him the hombre invisible.
We had about 500 pages of notes, some finished, some very rudimentary. So Brian Garson, Sinclair Bayliss, and I sat down and assembled this. And then it went to the printer as we finished. The chapter went to the printer. We said we'll figure out the order later, but when it came back from the printer, we took one look and said there's no necessity to make any changes. And the title, Naked Lunch, is Jack Kerouac's title. What might be a negative experience for someone else can be a very positive experience for a writer. The damage to health from addiction is minimal.
But it has done things to your soul.